Okay, so we're now into our second session, which we're calling Persuasion. And we've got three speakers with two presentations. So the first one is from MyFirst. It's Carl Jones and Clara. I'm going to say it's Herlock. I hope I've got that right. Carl is the Chief Underwriting Officer and Cara is the COO. So I think we've got your slide. So Carl, when you want to progress, I think you just have to ask for it to move to the next slide. Are you with us, Carl? And are you off mute?
Classic mistake, forgot to press the mic. Right. Good morning. Thank you for inviting us to join the conference and talk to you about telematics, its history, its challenges, and our approach, which we hope you'll agree results in safer roads and better drivers. We can move on to the first slide. MyFirst was developed back in 2017 by our founder, James Noble. This was born out of his own personal experience of trying to understand motor insurance as a first-time driver. It's, a 17-year-old arranging any sort of financial service for the first time is quite daunting. Lots of terms and conditions and phrases that they're not used to. So James recognised this and realised that something needed to be done. He found the majority of new drivers buy insurance online with little or no understanding of the terms that apply, and in particular, telematics. The business has evolved over the last 8 years to be recognised as one of the leading providers of young driver and telematics insurance in the UK, a fact that we're proud of and are determined to retain that recognition as we continue to grow. Next slide, please. Telematics isn't a new technology. It's been around since 2004. But what we've seen over the last 20 years is that telematics hasn't been managed very well by some of the original providers with the right intentions to use telematics, but the wrong systems around it and how we look after those people once they've got a telematics policy. I think the previous structure of telematics was all about writing volume insurance policies and not actually what happens after that person's bought a telematics policy. We've sort of changed the idea of that and looked at ways that we can manage telematics in a more customer friendly way. Telematics doesn't need to be about big brother parental guidance. It's about making sure that young people in their first journey on the road are safer and understand what it is that we're trying to help them do, which ultimately for all of us is to keep them safe. Our combination, the way we look at telematics is broken into a number of factors. It's not just the technology, the device. It's about supporting the customer, giving them education and having a human eye on the data so that we can react to it, not just relying on technology to be able to identify risk and prevent it. Go on to the next slide, please. So why is MyFirst safer? At the heart of our customer-centric model is our safe driving team, whose sole purpose is to monitor the performance of our telematics devices and keep our drivers safe on the road by deploying a combination of advice and guidance, coaching and warnings, and that personal touch, which I think has been lacking in the telematics market for a number of years. What we've found is that previous telematics providers, or even some of the current telematics providers, they're quite happy to put a telematics device in the car and sell the policy, but what they won't then do is react to the information that device is giving them, particularly, and we'll have all heard the horror stories and the bad press on telematics, how my son was cancelled when he wasn't speeding, he wasn't doing this, he wasn't even on that road. The data has improved massively over the last 10 years, and it's very unusual for data to be completely wrong. The chances are if the device says you're doing 70 in a 40, you're doing 70 in a 40. There are odd occasions where it does break down, but that's where the human eye is needed. we've got a whole team here that are looking at the data when we receive a speeding notification, and they're looking at, is it correct? Is the road, the advent of things like Google Maps and everything gives us a real clear view of where that person was driving at the time. So the whole point of our team is to give the customer a call, then talk to them about why they were driving like that. Did they need, there's a multitude of reasons why they claim to be speeding, but what's really interesting is actually looking at the worsening behaviour. Certainly with new drivers, they're in a position where they've just got on the road, the driving instructor's no longer next to them, it's time for them to go out on their own. They start to gain confidence over the first few weeks, and as you see them gain confidence, what you do see is worsening speeding behaviour and harsh braking and cornering and things like that. So the whole point of what our safe driving team do is they look at that behaviour, and then they look to improve that behaviour through coaching calls, messaging, WhatsApp, texts. Emails are a little bit old hat for 17, 18-year-olds, but it's about communicating and engaging with young people in mediums that they understand and want to work with. Next slide, please.
So that's all good talk, but does it actually work? And the answer is a resounding yes. Our insurer partners tell us that it works because our loss ratio is market leading. But we've also got data that's shown in the scores that our customers get. So the graph that you can see on the left is kind of the worst scores, and on the right are the highest scores. What we've done is we've compared that to a cohort of kind of other telematics schemes managed by our telematics providers. And compared with them, actually, we've eliminated the worst 10% of all risks. So if you looked at a graph of one of our competitors or many other telematics schemes out there, you would see quite a significant shift to the left. So the bottom 10%, the riskiest group in kind of the wider cohort of other customers, their average score is 48.5, but we are a good 10 points above that. And the next 10%, the customer groups average 59, whilst we and our customers average 68. So what does that actually mean? Well, what it means is that our customers are a much lower risk overall. We've basically removed the worst performing 10%, removed them through the stuff that we're going to talk to you about going forward in this presentation, but by coaching, by intervention, by identifying bad driving really early on, and not just cancelling as some providers here we won't name do, but by actually engaging with our customers and trying to make them better drivers. Because for us, it's about changing behaviour, because we're all about saving lives. That's why we're all here. Next slide, please. So it starts from the very beginning. It starts before a customer even buys. That's kind of really important to us. We're very focused on full transparency and offering guidance and advice from get-go. So as Carl said earlier, a lot of our customers are probably on price comparison sites to look for their insurance. And let's be honest, young driver insurance is really expensive. So they're mostly buying on price. They're not looking at the product. They're not really understanding what they're buying. They're just trying to find the cheapest brand that will give them a quote, and they're taking it out. And for us, that's just not the way forward. So we can, we spend a lot of time talking to our customers. Our quote can take kind of an average quote is about 20 minutes. But when we're talking to them, we're trying to really understand what their needs are. We're trying to explain to them the benefits, them and their parents, in fact, who are often engaged in the purchasing journey, the benefits of buying a telematics policy, the fact that actually the moment that the young driver is in the car on their own, mum and dad can't be there anymore, but actually we are there with them, and we're there to keep an eye on and help them. So we're explaining the features and the benefits of the policy. We're talking to them about what we're looking at from a telematics perspective, how we're tracking their speeding, their cornering, their braking. But also we're really clear to them about what we consider to be good and bad driving. So, we know that young drivers, when they're on their own, are not going to be angels. And we wouldn't expect everyone to be an angel, but we just don't want them to be dangerous. So we're very clear about the thresholds that we expect and what we consider to be bad driving, and also talk to them about the action that we will take if we see worrying behaviour or really dangerous driving. Next slide, please.
So much of the protection starts from day one of the policy. I think if you look at the statistics, what we've seen is, many young and inexperienced drivers have accidents in the first few days or first week of their policy, which the problem with telematics using it for coaching is if they haven't got the device in the car, then you can't help them because you can't see what they're doing. So one of the key factors for us is getting that device fitted as soon as possible. So we're really proud. We've got the fastest fitment time in the market at an average of 1.6 days. And the main reason for that is because we invest that little bit more. So we'll spend a little bit more on making sure the device goes out by special delivery. So the customer's almost guaranteed to get it the next day, a day after, within that time. So what we get from that is the fact that we can see them as soon as they start driving. And I think those first 3-4 days of driving, we can very quickly see behaviours that, in some you can see nerves, in others you can see an increasing habit of starting to get a little bit faster every day. So it's really key that we get the telematics device fitted straight away. If we go on to the next slide, please. So proactive protection. So I know it's a fancy title that doesn't seem to say a lot, but for us it means an awful lot. So what we do in the first few weeks and few months of their policy is we have an extra close eye on our customers. We know that in those first few weeks we will start to see increase in speeding behaviour. So the first few days they may stick to the speed limit, go 3 or 4 miles an hour over, but probably after a week to 10 days we start to see that speeding behaviour increase. And what we do is we monitor that, and as soon as they hit the first threshold of 10 miles an hour over the speed limit, we'll immediately contact them. That has two effects. It makes the customer realise that A, the device works and we can see what they're doing, and B, it gives us the opportunity to say to them, look, we've monitored your driving for the last week or 10 days, and what we've noticed is you started off okay, but each day you've got a little bit more confident. Now you're still a new driver, you're still inexperienced. What we need you to do is just slow down a little bit. Let's take some care. Let's think about why we're needing to speed like that. Is it because we're late for school? Is it we're late for college? And we'll talk to them about what they can do to prevent those behaviours, because those behaviours are the behaviours that we want to cut out. And we've had a fantastic success rate. What we've found is with our customers, within the first 3 months of their policy, those customers that receive a warning, 97.6% of those customers will stop going 10 mile an hour over the speed limit within the first 3 months. And I think that's key to seeing a long-term behaviour improvement. Go to the next slide. So as I was explaining, our unique early warnings algorithms drive immediate customer contact when concerning patterns are detected. The whole benefit of this is the immediate contact. I think what we've seen with many telematics providers in the past is they'll notice this behaviour and it will automate an email to a customer. 17 and 18-year-olds, I've got some teenage children, and getting them to answer a WhatsApp's bad enough, but expecting them to read email, you've got absolutely no chance. So it's all about communicating with them quickly and making them aware that their behaviour is worsening and how to improve it. On to the next slide, please.
If the worst happens and actually our coaching falls on deaf ears, or a customer is just unlucky enough to have a crash, then the bonus point of telematics is that we're actually there with them. So in the event of a high G-force event, our 24/7 call centre is monitoring all alerts. So our device will send an alert to the call centre, and a human will take a look at the information. They'll take a look at the location, and they'll do an analysis and make sure that it's not just been a pothole, somebody's just not hit a curb, but actually they have had an event. Our device actually proactively contacts the customer, so it sends an in-car alert asking if they've had an accident, to which they can just speak to it and say yes or no. If we don't receive a response, then we'll give the customer a call, and 99% of times we'll speak to the customer. We'll also be able to see from the event that it's not significant, in that it's not life-threatening. But what we can then do is give reassurance to a 17-year-old who's had an accident for the first time. I'm sure we've all been involved in crashes, and it's scary, and it kind of, you don't quite know what to do. So we're there to help them in that difficult time. And from a insurance perspective, it also means that we get to the accident as soon as we can and start to sort the problem out. If we can't get hold of the customer and we believe from the G-force it's a catastrophic event in that we need to send emergency services, then we will dispatch them. Obviously, we have the location, we know vaguely what we'll be expecting, so we'll send somebody out to make sure that they get immediate assistance, which we know that parents find to be a really reassuring part of our policy, that if they can't be there, at least we're there keeping an eye on the most precious thing, which is their young driver.
Next slide.
So all of this is great, but it's only great if the device is actually working. So when we say that we're keeping an eye on the data, we're also keeping an eye on our telematics fleet to make sure that it's working really well. We're delighted that 99% of our devices are actively reporting at all times, but part of the job that our intervention team are doing is also monitoring device health and making sure that we contact customers if there are problems with the device, making sure that they are working effectively. We're also able to identify if our customers are interfering with the device, so GPS blockers, removing the device and taking action immediately, which is really important, because actually the most important thing for us is that there is a working device in the car at all times reporting. MyFirst don't give fines. We don't believe in fining during the policy, but what we do is rewarding safe driving. And so at the end of a policy, when we know how customers driven for a whole year, then we are able to reward them with a score related discount, which we feed into their renewal. So not only are they getting the benefits of actually earning their first year's no claims bonus, which will make their insurance cheaper as they renew, but we're also rewarding safe drivers. So there is a benefit for our customers.
Can I ask you to speed up a little bit, because we're pressed for time?
Sorry.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Final slide.
Final slide.
Oh.
In summary, MyFirst represents fundamental shift in how we approach telematics and young driver safety. Focus on education and safety, not just monitoring. Intervention before incidents occur. Protection from the first day of driving. MyFirst isn't just about ensuring young drivers, it's about protecting them, educating them and rewarding them for their safe driving behaviour. Thank you.
Thanks.
Brilliant. And if you can sort of hang around, we'll have some Q&A about 11 o'clock. Excellent. Thank you. So now we've got Paul Cope from Safe Roads Challenge. If we can push play.
Hello everyone, my name is Paul Cope. I am Director at Safe Roads Challenge in the UK. Thank you very much for joining this session. I believe there's going to be time for Q&A after this, so let's get straight into it. So I'm going to talk to you today about persuading young drivers with tech-forward gamification. So firstly, a little bit about us at Safe Roads Challenge. We consider ourselves a social impact technology organisation with a clear single-minded mission, and that is to reduce vehicle-related collisions and fatalities, ensuring everybody makes it home safely. So we're all pretty familiar with the scale of the problem, but the numbers certainly remind us why we do what we do. Over 1,600 fatalities a year, nearly 133,000 injuries, at a cost of £43 billion every single year. So there are many causes of road traffic collisions, and there are many which we look at in the Safe Roads Challenge platform. But by double clicking on one, speeding, it shows us that we have a familiar problem. So just to take the example of the world's first speeding ticket issued 129 years ago to poor Walter Arnold of East Peckham, was clocked doing 4 times the speed limit and was pursued for 5 miles by a policeman on a bicycle. Fast forward today, we really see the scale of the problem. 2.7 million drivers caught speeding annually, £85 million paid in fines, and 56% of fatal RTCs involve some kind of vehicle speeding. But what if we could do something about these problematic driving behaviours? That's why we created the Safe Roads Challenge, a groundbreaking initiative that leverages behavioural science, technology and gamification, offering a fresh approach to building safer roads and stronger communities. It's our persuasive solution. But what is gamification? Now, for any gamers out there, you'll recognise the term, but for everyone else, gamification is the integration of gaming elements such as experience points, leaderboards, rewards, challenges into non-game live environments to boost engagement and improve behaviour. And it's been used in areas as diverse as helping people to give up smoking, helping people to learn languages. But what we know that it does is that it changes behaviour permanently. And it's this principle that informs Safe Roads Challenge. Our platform, which features a mobile app, has been live in the US for about 4 years now, measuring over 4 million trips and around 50 million miles. And it incorporates key gamified aspects, including, of course, scoring via an in-depth telematics platform, hints and tips, leveling up feedback, and competitions and leaderboards. Plus, of course, measuring and recording personal stats, driving streaks, summaries, and running totals. Of course, not forgetting rewards, which we zone by location: food zone, drive zone, shop zone, community zones, all pinned within the app. Plus, we give people the chance to pick up spot prizes as well. In this instance, the ability to cut your driving costs for a year. And there's an additional overlay which we've recently brought into the app, which gives safer drivers the opportunity to play for £250,000. And then, of course, all of these badges and experiences which you collect in the app are stored in your wallet to be redeemed via the app and the Safe Roads Challenge platform. So an elegant solution. And the great thing about this is that we know that it works. So in the US, over the past 3 years, we've seen an average percentage decrease in risky driving events of 27%. Plus, there's a nice eco-side benefit too, 7 to 14% reduction in overall fuel costs and CO2 emissions, which has been particularly popular with fleets. So what are we doing? Well, we're inviting drivers and riders to join our Safe Roads Challenge via 5 key steps, and I'll go through each one. So step 1, connect, a proven approach to make safe driving a part of everyday culture. That's what we're doing. This is about inspiring drivers to want to improve and understand how they can make a real difference to their community. Step 2, engage. Create content that celebrates the mountain of value embedded in the platform. And this content has to be easy to understand and benefit-led. For example, this is a video that lives on our joining page.
Okay, everyone, it's time to drive like a legend and win like a boss. Tired of being told how to drive? Me too. Safe Roads Challenge is for drivers with skill. No lectures, no randomly throwing the rulebook down at you. Just head-to-head competition and insane rewards. Put your skills to the test and get paid to play. It's just £5 a month. And show us you're good, and we can guarantee at least £60 off your car insurance when you renew. So get involved and compete. Climb the ranks on our leaderboards. The more points you get, the higher the chance to bag some epic rewards. Your driving skills, pure bragging rights. Even just by using the app, you're stacking perks. Think regular drops and cash vouchers from major major brands. So yeah, you could be bagging stuff every single week. And the ultimate game changer, you could win a cool £250,000. Yep, you heard that right. So stay in the game and you could be our lifesaver, life changer, jackpot winner. Challenge anyone, your mates, your favorite influencers, even total strangers. Who's really got the sharpest instincts? Just pure skill. You win because you're good. Simple. So the question is, are you in or are you just another backseat driver? Game on.
So step 3, of course, is reward. Incentivizing drivers to practice mindful driving every day through regular rewards. By rewarding safe driving in the most important locations, collision black spots, schools, parts, intersections, we ensure that users get the opportunity to really make a difference to their communities. Step 4, share. We empower our partners as well as users to tell their story and promote their commitment to safer roads. We help drivers and partners get the message out there through content packs and social tools. And finally, step 5, scale. Collaborate with like-minded organisations to help make safe driving an integral part of broader behaviour change. We enable collabs with whoever shares our vision of safer roads in return for a stake in the success we'll guarantee. So at this point, I want you to share a quick case study for some activity this year that we did in the US. In this instance, the Florida Department of Transport. Their big issue is, particularly with young drivers, is around distracted driving. So it's less about speeding, it's more about phone use and not paying attention to the road. So what we did is we studied the effects of gamification on reducing distracted driving in young drivers. And we did this by checking the effects of Safe Roads Challenge versus a control group who used the same scoring engine but without gamification. And we measured drivers' focus score through the app. And this is calculated through phone handling, swerve, and steadiness. The outcomes, which I'll summarise now, were impressive. So we saw over a 10-week period an average focus score improvement of 9% of the Safe Roads Challenge group versus the control group. For those who had the lowest scores, we saw a 14% improvement over that time, which is a really interesting insight for us. And then fantastically, we saw on average, a 73% reduction in risk events per 100 miles of the Safe Roads Challenge group versus the control group. So these are great numbers. We've got other case studies as well, which I can share with you if you want to get in touch. But this is a demonstration that it really works with real drivers on the road. So what next? Well, we've got some big ambitions. As I mentioned before, our UK platform is live. It's working. It's up and running. We're working with partners and affiliates to create scale around it. It's a data-rich platform that can inform and measure intervention strategies, as well as just generally improving driver performance on the road. We want to amplify behaviour change. We have a commitment to scale driven by rewards and gamification. And then, of course, the driver and rider outreach. And we've got a multi-channel approach, including influencers and brands, and the affiliate program I just talked to you about. Now, that's a presentation all of itself. And if you're interested to hear a bit more about what we're doing with affiliates, more than happy to have a conversation. All of which is structured via our young driver ecosystem. So we're using gamification to drive persuasion. We're recruiting affiliates to create reach and scale into broader driver groups. And we're building an engaging rewards platform that delivers consistent reinforcement over time. In short, we're rewarding mindful driving. So in summary, we're driving change by changing driving. Gamification has a real potential to be a genuine game changer for road safety. It's a persuasive, rewards-driven and gamified to change driver behaviours for good. And we're collaborating with UK communities, influence and socially conscious brands to make a real difference to make this happen. That's me for now. If you'd like to have further conversation, my details are on the screen. I'll leave them there for a few seconds, but please give me a call or ask a question in the Q&A afterwards. Thanks very much. Thank you everyone for listening. There's time for a Q&A now, I believe, so be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thanks very much. Goodbye.
Brilliant. Thank you. If my speakers can rejoin me, so we can ask some questions. This one has generated a lot of interest in there. And as I have this sort of thing, I just want to flag, on Monday, we launched a new website, which is Protect Young Drivers. So I just wanted to sort of flag that if anyone on the call hasn't heard of that, then hopefully we'll drop something in the chat or something so you can see the link to that. Right. So I really like this idea that young drivers, they have this period where they need to improve. They've passed, but they're not very good. And I was thinking, if you learn to fly, say, an aircraft, actually you don't pass until you've been out on your own and sort of demonstrated that you can fly safely. And I really like that idea that someone is there with you over those sort of certainly those informative first 3 months and ideally longer. So it'd be nice potentially if we had a second part to your provisional, that you pass all your tests and everything, but then actually you don't get your full license until you've managed to, well, at least have an average score above 59 or something. Do you know what I mean? So there's a challenge in there to actually be the best you can if you want to retain that, or you have to carry on perhaps for a longer period or something else. But yeah, it'd be interesting how we can actually improve this whole system. And I've got black box in my car, but it gives a bit of feedback, but it doesn't really encourage us to be better drivers or anything like that. So it's sort of, to me, it's missing a trick. Right, let me go to some of the questions that we've got here. There's a question here about the cost. So is telematics reduce sort of the risk? Are they cheaper? But my guess is that you're doing a lot more work. So can you give us a...
So telematics policies on the whole are cheaper. There's no doubt about it. If you run through on a price comparison site with and without telematics, you'll get a difference of anywhere between 20 and 30, maybe 40%. So there's a dramatic cost saving in having a telematics device. So that's fairly clear. I think the challenge is with non-telematics for young drivers. Where's the education piece? So that there are a number of policies out there now that do provide cover for young drivers, and some parents are prepared to pay £1,000 more to have no telematics device. But that's due to the old media coverage of telematics devices that have made people think that it's all about telling people off and making young people's lives a misery. It's nothing like that. It's all about it should be all about protection.
Yes, yeah. Well, I'm just going to flag that PACTS is trying to do some work at the moment looking at star rating of insurance products for young drivers, so that actually we can recognise the added benefits that they have on there. So I love the post-collision bit where if you have a serious collision, that you guys know about it and you can get help, sort of thing. I mean, to me, that is a massive added service that's sort of well worth having. In fact, when I bought my latest phone, I got one that has that sort of built into it, because I like the thought that if I have a crash, then that support is there. Someone knows about it. So I think those sort of things are really important that we pull out into public awareness.
I think we've seen recently, haven't we, with we've seen it in the news where young people have been involved in accidents where they haven't been able to find young people, and that critically is probably because there's not a telematics device in the vehicle, which for young people go out late at night, they visit McDonald's at 1 o'clock in the morning. it's normal for them. So there should be some way with young and inexperienced drivers to know where what they are if we need to, not to follow them, not to monitor them, but to make sure that if something does happen while they're driving late at night, that they've got some protection.
Yes, brilliant. Right. Question for Paul. Is your app available in Ireland?
In Northern Ireland, yes. Not Republic of Ireland, no. So we cover the UK. So it's England, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland.
Okay. And a question for both of you. What about Wales and their new 20? So are you sort of covering those and picking up behaviours in those areas?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So speed and monitoring speed and making sure that drivers are contextually observing the speed limits is an extremely important part of what we do. I mentioned it at the beginning of my presentation. There are lots of things that we measure within the app, from phone handling through to swerve, through to extreme braking and acceleration. But speeding is a really big one for us. And absolutely, we've got all of the speed limits tracked across the UK. Plus, we look at contextual data as well. So, for example, there will be situations where driving at 30 in a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit is appropriate, but there'll be weather events that mean it's not appropriate, and our app picks that up through all that contextual data that it captures.
Okay.
Yeah, agree on the Wales thing. I will say that it's not been without its fun challenges, because they implemented blanket 20 and then some roads changed, and we've had a lot of feedback from our customers who, you know, as we've been giving them feedback, have told us that this road is actually now a 30. So, you know, but the whole point of kind of what Carl said about the human eye is that we're all over it. And if our customers are giving us feedback and challenges, then we're going in and doing the investigation, even if it means we're phoning a shop that's on that road to actually ask them what the speed limit really is today, then we're checking it out. So it's been fun, but actually, you know, what we've seen is that young drivers are responding well to those kind of implementations of lower speed limits. They might not, you know, be doing 20, but they're probably not doing the 40 they were doing when it was a 30. So, you know, it's definitely all had its benefits, and we can see that in our scores regionally.
Definitely. And I think obviously what the great thing about it is that there've been one or two teething problems implementing it, as we've talked about, but we know it's working. And in, you know, over the past few years, where, you know, as a community, it's been difficult to find really effective interventions. We know that 20 works, certainly in certain locations. So we should all be getting behind that, I think.
Okay. There's a question to both of you about young riders. So do your products cover those on powered two wheels?
Yeah, shall I go first on that? So yeah. we cover everything from big multi-wheel Arctic lorries right the way down to little 50cc mopeds, and we do that through in the app. We ask users to self-select the vehicle that they're in. We've got about I think there's 12 or 13 vehicles within the app. So as long as you've selected,
did it cover scooters yet?
In terms of the electric stand-up,
yeah.
No, it doesn't. And this is a very interesting area, isn't it? And something that probably deserves almost a conference in its own right.
Altogether. Yes.
But no, we've not lent into the two-wheeled electric scooters yet. We go from the 50cc moped right up to the multi-wheel Arctics.
Okay. Carl and Cara.
Yeah, from an insurance point of view, it's actually a challenge that we've been looking at for probably 2 years. Motorcycles is a whole different ball game when it comes to telematics, because obviously, you know, the way telematics works, it relies on movement, and obviously motorcycle movement is very different to car movement. We're in the process of working with a telematics provider at the moment and looking at how we can identify what is per driving behaviour. I think one of the challenges we have in the insurance world is the biggest problem with motorcycle and scooter insurance isn't so much the damage side, it's the personal injury normally from the pillion rider, not the rider themselves. So from the insurance industry is scared of people coming off the back and being involved in those accidents, especially for the young drivers, because they shouldn't have somebody on the back. So that is the key difference. But at the moment, there is nobody doing it. We're trying our best, but it's quite a hard technology to get right.
Sorted. There's Keith Baldock's asked a question about having some slides and stuff. So perhaps you can have a look at that later, both of you, and perhaps respond to him. I've got a question about the trigger point. So having sort of talked to a number of insurance companies, you're sort of 10 miles above the limit, isn't unusual and is possibly one of the better ones. And for the road safety community, that might be a bit of a shock sort of thing that for us, people 10 miles an hour over the limit is quite high sort of thing. So can you just sort of cover that? And is there a bit like speed cameras, are you going to sort of slowly wind it down as compliance improves, or?
Do you want to go?
I mean, I think on that, you need to be careful that telematics alerts don't become white noise.
Yeah.
You've got a device yourself. We've all got apps that go with our devices. We send notifications out for every journey. I've got an app. Do I look at it all the time? No, because my life is really busy. So I think for us, we know that 10 is significant enough trigger that's when we need to intervene. And it is really effective, as Carl said. 98 or whatever the percentage was of our customers, after 3 warnings, because one doesn't always work, they will slow down. But I think the other important thing is that because we do it really early on, the actual result is, oh bugger, the device does work, they are looking at me, and actually that's going to impact my behavior overall. If every 2 minutes you're just saying, we saw you do 1 mile an hour over the speed limit, we've all dealt with teenagers, they're not going to buy into that. So for us, it's about finding a trigger behavior that is impactful, that we can follow up, that our team will then follow up with coaching calls if we don't get the response we see. And it is effective in that, they realize it's not a placebo device. We really are on it. We really are watching, and we demand change, and we demand a responsible level of driving. I think if we did it at 3 miles an hour, I don't think it would have that level of impact.
I think that's a really interesting point. I think sort of context is vitally important, and what we're trying to do is to encourage better driving over time. We know we're not going to solve all the problems immediately. This is about delivering better behaviours over time, and that takes all the things that we've just been talking about. So I think that's a really interesting point.
So I've got another question for both of you, which is, I did one of these ones where you download the app, you drive for a week, and it tells you how good you are. And for that week, I drove really well, and I still got a rubbish score. And I was just thinking, do you know what? Perhaps I don't understand what makes a good driver, or what an insurance company thinks makes a good driver. And then I was thinking, hang on, I was pulling out onto a 60-mile-an-hour road. If I'd have gone through the village, I could have joined at a roundabout. Would have that given me a better score, sort of thing? So, do you sort of share? These are the things that you should be considering. Sort of turning right across fast-moving traffic, doing those things. Do you have that sort of level of information you share with your drivers to sort of say this is how you improve, or is it more about the sort of speed handling, things like that?
Yeah, obviously there's a combination to make a safe driver. It's obviously speeding, braking, cornering are the obvious ones, but times a day, length of journey, those additional sort of tips are there to protect them and make them understand, sort of give them some education of why is it bad if I'm driving for 4 hours without a break? Why is it bad if I'm driving around at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning? Why is it bad in the winter if I'm out at 2 o'clock in the morning and it's snowing and raining, etc., etc. So it's not just about the granular detail is quite difficult to get into, because every road is different, every area is different. Somebody lives in a rural area compared to somebody that lives in an urban area. You can't class them the same. So you have to have factors that are almost set that we look at. We have customers who drive up a lane every day and get notifications because there's a load of potholes on the road. So you have to look at each individual, and that's where the human eye comes in. You need to look at the individual circumstances of a journey and say, look, this is why you're having this problem, and we can talk to the customer about it. So we share as much as we can, but the granular detail of don't turn right on that road, it's going to cause you a problem, might be a bit of a challenge.
I agree. And I think, as Carl said, it's about personalising it. And that's why, you know, we're incredibly proud of our intervention team, because when they're having a call with you, they've looked at your driving details. They've seen that actually, do you know what? Generally, you're all right, but you live where there are a whole bunch of 20-mile-an-hour roads. So just don't speed on those. And generally, your driving is pretty good. Or what we see is that every morning you are getting speeding events at kind of 8:45. Are you meant to be in work then, or are you meant to be in school then? You know, sometimes it's as simple as, we've looked at you, we understand your patterns, here's the advice for you, as opposed to a generic kind of, here's some stuff, hints and tips for just better driving that, you know, are probably useful, but won't impact, particularly when you're young, as much as somebody talking about your personalized circumstances.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
I think empowering the driver with, you know, little bits of micro coaching to help them be better, that is specific to their own driving performance, is exactly what this tries to do. And then I think if you can then reward the improved outcomes off the back of that, then even better. And what we try and do is, you know, through the awarding of experience points, which is XP is a pretty familiar gamified structure. If you could do that through when people actually, you know, watch the bits of micro coaching that we send them. So we tend to build out sort of 20-30 second little clips to help them, because let's be honest, young drivers, it's very difficult to keep their attention for much longer than that on an ongoing basis. So continuing to reward people for looking at this content, and then and off the back of improving their outcomes on the road, is a really powerful idea.
Okay, thank you very much. If you can perhaps have a look at the Q&A and maybe answer any questions that we didn't get to, that would be really good. And we'll move on to our next session. So thank you very much for your time in doing that.
Cheers, thank you.